You know that feeling, right? That really deep human need to belong, to feel seen, to feel like you're part of the group? But what happens when the price of fitting in is shaving off the very parts of you that make you, well, you? That's the hidden dilemma we're getting into today. This tough spot where people feel forced to choose between being their true self and being accepted.
So, I gotta ask, have you ever felt that choice? Maybe it was at a new job, starting at a new school, or even just hanging out with a new group of friends. It's a feeling almost everyone can relate to. But for a lot of students, especially when they first get to a university, this isn't just a fleeting feeling. Nope, it's a constant, high-stakes negotiation they have to make every single day.
And this is really the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got authenticity, being true to your own story, your values, who you are. On the other side, there's belonging, that powerful magnetic pull to be accepted by the group. For so many students from marginalized backgrounds, stepping onto a university campus can feel like putting these two basic human needs on a collision course.
To really get what's going on here, we have to kind of zoom out. Because belonging isn't just some warm, fuzzy feeling you get inside. It's political. It's shaped by all these invisible rules and unspoken power structures that determine who gets to feel at home and who's left feeling like they're on the outside looking in. Okay, so let's start with the personal side of things. There's this idea called place belongingness, and it's so much more than just having an address. It's that deep down gut feeling of being truly at home somewhere. A place where your own stories, your culture, and your relationships all feel like they just fit, like they're woven right into the fabric of the place itself. And, this feeling is not simple. It's actually a whole ecosystem of things. It's built from our own personal history and the people we know. It's about shared culture, but it also gets into the practical stuff. Like, do we feel economically safe? What are our legal rights? And maybe most importantly, do we actually have the choice to be there or not? All of these factors work together to create that personal sense of belonging.
But here's the thing. Our personal feelings don't just exist in a bubble. They run right up against what's called the politics of belonging. This is the other side of the coin. It's the whole social machine that draws lines in the sand, creating an us and a them. It's the system that decides who gets to belong automatically and who has to constantly work to prove they're worthy of a spot.
And this quote just nails it. Belonging isn't handed out like a free gift. It's a negotiation. You've got a structure, like a university, that holds the power to decide who is accepted. And that, in turn, forces students on the margins to work for it, to perform, and to constantly justify why they even deserve to be there. So, you can think of universities as offering two basic paths or cultural scripts for students to get accepted. The first is what we can call a script of sameness. The goal is assimilation, just fit in. But the trade-off is huge. You have to silence the parts of yourself that don't fit the mold. The second path is a script of difference. Here, the goal is sustenance, and your authenticity is actually embraced. So what does it feel like to be stuck between those two paths? To be caught between your home culture and the university's culture? The writer Gloria Anzaldúa gave this feeling a name, Nepantla. It's this really disorienting, often painful in-between space where your different worlds and identities are basically at war with each other inside your head. And we're not just talking about feeling a little awkward. Nepantla is this deep state of uncertainty that makes you face some really harsh realities about how the world works. But here's the fascinating part. Anzaldúa also says that this painful, confusing space is exactly where real growth and transformation can happen. All right, so let's take a walk down that first path, the more harmful one, the one that demands sameness. This is where that brutal choice between being yourself and being accepted becomes incredibly, painfully clear. The first script that causes harm is something called shallow multiculturalism, and you've seen this. It's the feel-good diversity posters, the international food fairs. It loves to celebrate culture when it's a costume or a dish, but it gets real quiet when it comes to the tough conversations about power and race. The hidden message is pretty clear. We love your culture, just don't be too different. The second harmful script is a little trickier. It's the paradox of exceptionalism. This is when an institution accepts a marginalized student, but sort of frames them as special, one of the good ones. This creates this crushing pressure to be perfect, and it comes with a huge psychological price tag, a constant feeling of self-doubt, and often a painful disconnect from your own community. But, and this is a big but, assimilation is not the only way. There is another path, so let's explore this transformative script, the one that finds acceptance through difference, not by erasing it. This is where authenticity and belonging can finally stop being enemies and actually join forces. This better path is built on an idea called culturally sustaining pedagogy, and the key word there is sustaining. This isn't just about tolerating a student's culture or trying to be relevant to them. It's about actively nurturing it. It means treating the languages, the histories, and the knowledge from their communities as vital resources, as assets. So what does that actually look like? Well, it starts by recognizing something called community cultural wealth. And forget about what you normally think of as capital. This has nothing to do with money. This is the wealth you find in a family's hopes and dreams for the future, the power that comes from speaking more than one language, the strength of family and social networks, and even the skills you build navigating and resisting unfair systems. One of the key ways to actually nurture this kind of wealth is by creating counter spaces. Now, you can think of these as deliberate safe havens. They can be physical places or just psychological spaces where students who feel pushed to the margins can come together. In these spaces, they can truly affirm who they are and heal from the stress of it all. They're called counter for a reason. They are built to push back against the dominant culture of the institution. And these spaces are not just for complaining, not at all. They are actual engines for building power. And it happens in about 3 stages. First, you have what's called narrative identity work, people sharing their own stories to fight back against stereotypes. Then it gets practical. They start exchanging real strategies for how to navigate the system. And all of that builds up to the final stage, collective acts of resistance, where they can start to challenge the unfair system itself. And this is what it's all building towards. See, creating little pockets of safety is important, but it's not the end goal. The real mission is to change the entire environment, to move beyond assimilation and build a new world, a world that can hold many ways of being, a plural world. And the vision for this new world is something called a third space. Try to imagine a place where difference isn't seen as a problem to be solved, a place where conflict isn't something you run away from. Instead, all that friction, all that difference, that becomes the fuel, the raw material you use to create brand new ideas, build new kinds of relationships, and spark real change. So how in the world do we get there? Well, the philosopher Maria Lugonis gave us a really powerful mindset for it. Loving playfulness. She describes it as world traveling, the act of entering another person's reality, their world, with total openness and curiosity. The point isn't to judge them or fix them, but just to understand their world on its own terms, without demanding they become more like you. And this is the ultimate payoff. In worlds that are built on this kind of loving playfulness, that awful choice that we started this whole conversation with, it just dissolves. It vanishes. You no longer have to pick between being authentic and belonging because your authenticity is the very thing that makes you belong. This just completely flips the script on what it means to belong. It's not about making yourself smaller to fit into a pre-made box. It's about being able to grow into your fullest self. As the research puts it so beautifully, to belong is to become more ourselves, to inhabit and accept more parts of ourselves more fully. And so that really leaves us all with a question, a challenge. In our lives, in our jobs, in our communities, how can we practice that kind of loving travel? How can we start building the kinds of worlds where no one ever has to face that impossible choice in the first place?